Hello, bros. We're back with The Wandering Heir, a Christmas story by Charles Reade. Reade, from what I can tell, is not a literary giant, and he was often looked down upon by many readers and writers. But he was popular, a very popular writer in the 19th century, and one of the bestsellers. There's not much else to say about this book. I believe it's a first edition. Not that it makes it worth anything, but it's probably a $20 book. I can't remember where I bought it, but it's actually got a really nice cover. And it says that it's 1872, and I think the official first edition is 1873, so I'm not sure about that. So it looks like someone colored this in right here. This little girl's head or baby. The Wandering Heir. I know nothing about this book. I do know that Reade wrote about social injustice and stuff like that, so we'll see what this is about. I have no inkling of what it's about other than it's a Christmas tale. First chapter is really long. It's 41 pages. I'll try to get through maybe half of this since the pages are rather short. The Wandering Heir, Chapter 1. Vixer fortes ante ortona. One raw, windy day in the spring of 1726, there was a strange buzzing by the side of a public road in the very heat of old Ireland. It came from a great many boys seated by the roadside, plying their books and slates, with here and there a neighborly prod, followed by invectives whispered, for the pedagogue was marching up and down the line with a keen eye, and an immensely long black ruler, well known to the back and limbs of the scholars, except 3 or 4 whose fathers asked him to dine on poultry or butcher's meat whenever those rarities were at the fire. The schoolroom stood opposite and still belched through its one window the peat smoke that had driven out the hive. There was a chimney, but so constructed that on a windy day the smoke pooh-poohed it and sought the sky by vents more congenial to the habits of the nation. The boys were mostly farmers' sons in long frieze coats, breeches loose at the knees, clouted shoes tied with strips of raw, neat skin and slovenly cawbeans, but there was a sprinkling of broadcloth, plain 3-cornered hats, and shoe buckles. There were also 5 or 6 barefooted urchins, not the worst scholars there, for this strange, anomalous people, with many traits of the pure savage, had been leaders in medieval literature, had founded the University of Paris, and had still a noble reverence for learning. The humblest would struggle to pay a sharp boy's schooling, and so qualify him for business, perhaps for the priesthood itself, pinnacle of an Irish peasant's ambition. Aloof from this motley line stood a single timid figure, a boy with delicate skin and exquisite golden hair, his face pale and anxious. He wore a straight-cut coat, scarlet once, but now a rusty red, no hat, shoes with steel buckles and holes. This decayed little gentleman peered anxiously round a corner of the building, and as soon as ever the school broke up with horrid yells, ran and hid himself. Too late, one quick young eye had seen him, and while the rest dispersed, 2 or 3 galloping off on rough ponies, neck or not, in a style to set their unfortunate mothers screaming to the saints. A little party of 5, eager for diversion on the spot where they had suffered study, chased that golden-haired boy with an appalling whoop. Fear gave him wings, but numbers prevailed. They caught him and plagued him sore, jibed him, poked him, pinched him, got him by the head and legs, and flogged the tree with him, and in the exuberance of their gay hearts, pumped on his head till he gasped and cried for mercy in vain. That is foul play, 5-1, said a cheerful voice. Crick, crack, crick, crack, crack. And in a moment, Master Matthews, one of the superior scholars, made all 5 heads ring with a light shillelagh. I think that's a shillelagh. But not a grain of malice, only he was a promising young cudgel player and must be diverted as well as the younger ones. The obstreperous mirth turned with ludicrous swiftness to yells of dismay. But the warlike spirit of the old tools and the O'Shaughnessy's soon revived. The pedagogue and his solitary servant Nora ran out staring just in time to see battle arrayed with traditionary skill. Here a crescent of 5 armed with stones, there Master Matthews with a tree at his back, the lid of a slop pail for shield and a shillelagh for sword, grinding his teeth and looking dangerous, the fair-haired boy clasping his hands apart. "Oh, ye desperadoes, ye murthering villains, what is this at all?" cried Mr. Houlihan. Then each side set to work to talk him over. "Master Havoc," whined the army, "he broke our heads and killed us with his murthering shillelagh. The maraudlin villain entirely. Master dear, they were 5-1, tormenting the life out of this little baucon. Why didn't you catch up a flint and crack their skulls like nuts at Halloween? Och, here to the Fungaleering ruffian," and 5 hands were lifted high in a moment, each armed with a pebble. Then the pedagogue grew warm and gave them what he called his tall English. "The first that rises a hand, I'll pulverize him. Lay down your bellicose weapons, ye insurrectionary thaves, or Nora shall perforate ye. Bring the spit out, wench, and transfix ye to the premises, while I flagellate ye by dozens till the blood pours down your eels. Lay down your sprig of homicide and stand on it this minute, ye vagabond, or I'll baste you with the kitchen poker till your back is courant jelly and your head is a mashed turnip." Mrs. Malaprop observed in the next generation that there is nothing so conciliating to young people as a little severity, and so it proved even in this. The weapons were laid down, and then Matthew Houlihan, changing at once to the most affectionate and dulcet tone, said, "Now, honeys, we'll discourse the matter, not like the barbarian vulgar, that can only ratiocinate, I don't know what that is, with a bludgeon, but like good Christians and raal peripatetic philosophers that I have incensed in polite larning. Multiplication in all the humanities, glory be to God. Spake first, ye omnibon, ye omadhon, ye cause titterima belly, and reveal your crime." "Master, sir," said the victim, "I never done no crime. They do be always tormenting me. I never offended them. Spake the truth now, did I ever offend you?" "Saw ye, you did, then. Master dear, look at him. He's got a Protestant face. Oh, fie, my father is a good Catholic, isn't he, then? Heir. Oh, sir, it says. The pedagogue took fright at this turn. "Och, murther, he shrieked. "Ye contrary divils, would ye import the apple of discord and set my 2 parishes cracking skulls and starving me? Would ye conflagrate the temple of the Muses with Ojum Theologium, the first that diverges to controversial polemics in this academy? I'll go to my brother the priest and have him excommunicated alive. Face, it is a likely face enough, I'm thinking." "It's the purtiest in the school, one way," said Nora, the argument having now come within her scope, "and Adele the cleanest." Whereupon one of these reedy imps reminded her it was the oftenest pumped on. Said another, he shouldn't pretend to be a lord's son then, the little Gloragotine. But I am a lord's son, said the boy stoutly. Then there was a roar of derision, but the boy persisted that he was Lord Altham's son, and half the county of Wexford belonged to his father. Both sides appealed to the master, but he only said hum. So Nora put in her word and said the boy had been brought there by a great lord in a coach and six, and the lord had kissed him tenderly and called him his darling Jemmy in her sight and hearing. Mr. Houlihan admitted all that, but said, if he was my lord's real son, would my lord leave his board, lodging, and schooling unpaid these 14 months? Divil a one of 'em, replied an urchin with the modest promptitude of his tribe. Hope this doesn't continue on this way. This is laborious. Jemmy was himself struck by this argument. Alas, then, said he, I fear he must be dead. He was always good to me before. I was never away from him in all my life till now. Nor, when we were at Kinna, I had a little horse and boots and rode with him a hunting. I went to a day school then, and mine was the only laced hat in the school. I have brought it here. Through for you, me Bonkal, said Nora, and by the same token 'twas the thief of the world, Tim Doolin, that stripped it and gave the lace to his cross-eyed wench. Had luck to the pair of 'em. Oh, master, cried James, all of a sudden, clasping his hands, you that knows everything, tell me, is my father dead, the only friend I have? Ochun? Nay, nay, said Hooligan. I think it's supposed to be Houlihan. Touched by the cry of despair, Jemmy a Vic, if Lord Altham is your father, ye needn't cry, and wring your hands, for he is alive. What's that say, bad or head? That's bad. Bad cess to him. My cousin seen him in Dublin a sennight ago, spending money like wather, and divil a tenpenny has he paid me this 14 months. Master, sir, said Jemmy firmly, how far is it to Dublin, have ye please? Have ye place? 100 miles and more. Then I'll go to him there, sir. There was an ironical shout. Give me a good mail to start on, and I'll go for it. For I'm a lost boy here, and I'm ashamed to be in this place and him not paying for me like the rest. Now this sudden resolution was quite agreeable to Hooligan. Nora took the boy into the kitchen to feed him for the journey. The cubs began to feel rather sorry, for they were thoughtless, not bad-hearted. They scraped together 4 pence for his journey. Nora gave him an old hat and kisses, and a word of feminine advice. Ma botchel, boochel, my boochel, said she. Whenever you are in trouble, spake to the woman. They will be your best friends, but keep clear of your own color, not entirely. Only brown women and yellow women is more preferabler. By raison you are fair, like an angel herself. The boys set him on his road a mile, then stopped and blessed him, and asked his forgiveness, being, to tell the truth, now quaking in the shoes of superstition, lest he should put the hard word on them at parting. And him a piece of an orphan, as the biggest remarked, but his nature was too gentle for that. He forgave them, and blessed them, and they all kissed him, and he kissed them, and they went their way. But Matthews would go another mile with him. At parting he said, tell me God's truth, are ye that Lord's son? Indeed, then I am, sir. I wish I had known before. Let me look at thee well. I wonder whether I shall ever meet thee again, purty Jemmy. Indeed, and I hope so, sir, for you are all the friend I ever had in this place. Jemmy, it seems hard to make friends one afternoon, and then to part forever, said the elder boy, philosophizing. Jemmy's heart was swelling already, and at this, the lonely boy began to cry piteously. Then Matthews blubbered right out, and so they cried together and kissed one another many times, and James and Annesley began his wanderings. He walked on till dusk and saw a small farm. He went by Nora's advice, made straight up to the farmer's wife, and asked her leave to sleep on the premises. She looked him full before she answered, gave him some potatoes and buttermilk, and let him sleep in a little barn. He walked on the next day and fared much the same, but by the third day he got footsore and could only limp along. But he persevered. He sometimes got a lift on a cart, and sometimes when a farmer's wife or daughter or horseback overtook him, he would appeal to her, especially if she was dark. And true, it was the dark women, of whom were plenty in Ireland, would generally take him up and give him a ride before or behind as might be most convenient. Still creeping on, he got into a county where the people had faces unlike those he had left behind, and both men and women wore long frieze cloaks, and the women linen headdresses, and sometimes a handkerchief over that. And he limped into a village where it was sort of fair, but he had no money left to spend. And he sat down on the shaft of a cart, disconsolate, and seeing others so merry, began to weep with fatigue, hunger, and sorrow. By and by, a man saw him and asked him what ailed him, and he told him his sad case. Nay, then, sirs, said the man, you must come to the O'Brien. He took him to a little old man, exceedingly shabby, on a little white horse. He doffed his caubeen and said, "And its place, your honour's worship, this is a gentleman's son in trouble. He's hunting his own father, glory be to God." "Who is your father, friend?" asked the O'Brien. "And please your worship, he is my Lord Alton." The O'Brien made a wry face. "That is not Irish," said he, "some mushroom lord. Maybe one of William's men. Nay, sir, he is a good Catholic. Glory be to the saints." By this time there was a bit of a crowd collected to hear, but the dialogue was interrupted by a simple fellow who had lost his wife. He burst in wildly, crying, "Hurrah, people, did ye see Mary Sullivan, a tall yellow woman, not very yellow interiorly, but a white pipe in her cheek?" They roared at him, but he just rushed on, repeating that strange formula. The fear rang with it. Well, the little scarecrow, descended from Ireland's kings, took Jemmy home on his saddle bow. Cawbeens were lifted in the village wherever the decayed noble passed. He told the boy the whole county belonged to him and his ancestors, and he should sup and sleep where he liked. Finally, he showed him a large mansion and a cabin not far apart, let him know that these houses were his, and only various families had lived in the mansion for the last few centuries. "Now, sir," said he, "will you sleep in my large house where other people live this 500 years by my lave, or in my small house where I live at present for my convenience?" Says Jemmy, "Sir, the small house, if it pleases you, by reason I desire your company, as well as your house, sorry." The mighty scarecrow was pleased with this answer and took him to his mud cabin. He sent his one servant, a bare-legged girl, to demand a rasher from a neighboring farmer. No doubt she said that O'Brien had company, for eggs and perch were sent directly, as well as a large piece of bacon. The two personages supped together and slept on one heap of straw. In the morning, one peasant brought buttermilk and another trout, and another oatmeal, and another a vehicle, the body of which was a square box suspended on a strap. And the O'Brien's guest was taken 5 miles on his road, and his blessing sought by his conductor, a simple peasant who discoursed on the grandeur of the O'Brien, and boasted that neither he nor his race had ever done a hand's turn of work. It would never be allowed to in the country. Jemmy limped out of the county into another, and met with no adventure till he came to Dunny's Shallon, and was turned into a dice box. The young men of the village had cut a gigantic backgammon board on the green, very neat. It occupied the sixth part of an acre, and they had black and white flagstones to play with. Their dice box was always a boy, and catching sight of James, one sang out, "Hurroo! Here's a strange gossoon. Gossoon. We'll have luck all round." So James was seated on high with his back to the players and ordered, on pain of death, to sing out sixes, fours, quatre, ace, and all the combination ad libellum. He complied to avoid worse, and then it was he complied to avoid worse, and then it was he learned the literature of curses, in which this one small island was so fertile and ingenious that all the blasphemy in all the rest of Europe was poor and monotonous by comparison. The infinite maledictions would doubtless have instructed and amused him had they been leveled at another, but being fired at him whenever he called a number that did not suit the player, and uttered with every appearance of fury, they frightened him, and he began to tremble and snivel. "Now, then, ye vagabond, give me a good number, or may Saint Anthony's now trample out your entrails." Oh, sixes, ye contrary villain. Is it sixes I'm asking? The divil go on buck hunting with ye. Oh, never heed the ballyragging ruffin. Cry for me now, honey. Oh, I'm afraid. Deuce, ace. Oh, you're a broth of a boy. May you live till the skirts of your coat knock your brains out. Now cry for Barney. Oh, I am afraid to spake. The Virgin be good to me. Deuce, ace. Och, ye thafe of the world. May you die with a caper in your heel, and give the crows a puddin'. And so on till dark, when a losing player threatened to murther the dice. A winner objected. The two quarreled. Shillelaghs, I don't even know if that's shillelagh. Shillelaghs crossed, a ring was made, and there was much subtle play, and the whistling cudgels parried or met with a clash and bent over each other, till at last Jemmy's friend parried an excessive blow, and rising nimbly, delivered such a crusher on the other's skull that it literally shot him to the ground like a bullet, and he rolled over by the impetus after he landed. Then Jimmy screamed with dismay, but the more experienced laughed at his notion of what the true old Irish skull would bear, and the victor took him home to supper and bed, i.e., stirabout and straw. He came to a fall in a river 8 feet high, and saw salmon glittering prismatic in the sun like rainbows as they leaped. But they struck the descending column a foot too low, struggled in it a moment, then came down as stupid as tin fish. And here he saw a sight he might have traveled creation and never seen elsewhere. A corpse-like man lying flat in a coffin and towed gingerly up to the fall by his bare-armed wife straddling on a rock. The man caught the salmon on the ground, one after the other, by the belly, with a cart rope and 3 barbed hooks that would have landed a whale. 'Twas his own coffin, ordered by his uneasy wife, with true Hibernian judgment, the moment he was expected to die. But the salmon came up from the sea and began to leap like mad. Pat put off dying directly and took to poaching. We are creatures of habit, and salmon slaughtering was his custom at that time of the year, not dying. The woman being dark, partly with dirt, James besought her for a fish supper. She boiled him half a salmon and threw the rest to the pig, but she told James that in the big towns there were fools who would give, what does it say, fours? Fours, 100 weight for the trash? What the hell does that mean? What does that even say? Does that say fours? Give fours, okay. who would give fours 100 weight for the trash. Within 15 miles of the capital, he witnessed two abductions, one real, one sham, both commonish customs. The imitation was the lineal descendant of the real, and the men hallooed and galloped so much alike in both pageants, and the two brides screamed so much alike that he never knew for certain which was the pseudo Sabine, which was the real, and never will. His feet were bleeding, his clothes only just hung together, his little heart was faint. When at last he mounted a hill and looked down on the city, which, by its buildings, its size, and its blue slated roofs, far transcended all that he had ever imagined of a mortal city. The town did not then overflow into pretty villas. Mud cabins prevailed up to the city gates, and from them this weary, wondering child plunged into streets and mansions. At the very first street he stopped and asked the decent man where Lord Altham lived. The decent man met this question by another. How was he to know? The same answer was returned in the next street, and the next, and this poor little mite of humanity wandered up and down in vain. Then a great and new fear fell on him. This Dublin was not a town like Ross. It was another world, a world of stone and slate and hard hearts, not like the simple country folk. He might as well grope for his father in all Ireland as in this wilderness of labyrinths of stone. Snubbed, sneered at, rejected on all sides, he cried his sick heart and his hungry stomach to sleep in a church porch, and so he passed his first night in the capital. And I'm going to stop there, and I have no clue what the hell happened in this first chapter, except for a kid got beat up, and then he was going back to apparently his father's house. He was trying to get back to his father's house, who was a lord. I don't know, but I got to stop there because the dimness of this light combined with this small text is rather annoying. All right, goodbye, bros. That's all. Goodbye.